Sacramento's offense can't keep up as the Denver Nuggets quite literally cut the Kings' defense to pieces. Sacramento forced to settle for one win on this four-game road trip. But the Russell Westbrook experiment so far has been a smashing success for the Kings. We'll discuss it all right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. Kings lose in Denver 130-124. Wouldn't it have been something if they'd managed to salvage this road trip and somehow find a way to come home with a 500 road trip, especially after that loss to the Chicago Bulls. But the Kings did manage to get that one win in Milwaukee, which makes tonight's loss in Denver easier to swallow. Some good things in this game, an entertaining back and forth ball game. The Kings, they were close and they were in striking distance for the vast majority of this game. Like the only time where the Kings really looked out of their element was the Nuggets got off to a pretty decent start and built, I think, up to a 15-point lead on a couple different occasions in this game. Sacramento never led in this game, but they were always close. It always felt that they were there. And one run, they just needed one run to give themselves a chance to take a lead or win this game. And that run just never came. The Kings did manage to get it down to like 6 points a couple of times, and then Denver would do a really good job keeping Sacramento at arm's length, just not letting them to get any closer than that. And the Kings, their offense just quite frankly wasn't able to keep up with the poor defense the same way that it was able to in Milwaukee against the Bucks. The Kings now 2-5 on the season, and at the end of this game, it did look like we were watching a Kings team that was ready to get on the plane and ready to come home. And I think I got to be careful when I say that, because I think when a lot of people hear that, you think, oh, they gave up. They mailed it in. They're like, forget this game. We don't care anymore. Let's just get home so we can sleep in our own beds. But like, there were good moments of really good fight from the Kings in this game. In fact, the final 2 minutes of this game, the Nuggets reached 130 points. And I was thinking, okay, Denver could potentially push this to 140, depending upon how these final few minutes go. And the Kings created some turnovers, had some opportunities to potentially try and get this game to within 4 or fewer points down the stretch, but some shots that are normally good looks for guys like Zach LaVine simply weren't falling. We'll talk about Zach a little bit later in the show. But there were, before those final couple minutes, there were just moments where the Kings, you could tell, whether it was the elevation, the end of the road trip, a combination of everything, they just weren't willing to give that extra little burst of energy to cut off a cutter to the rim. And that's why I use the term cut to pieces. Denver cut the Kings to pieces in that introduction, because that's quite literally what they did. Like, the Nuggets already are in a very efficient offense. When you have a guy like Nikola Jokic, you can just run a lot of cutters off of him, and he's such an unbelievable passer that he'll find them. Nikola Jokic was sensational in this game as usual. 34 points, 14 assists. I mean, the dude is just incredible what he can do. So anytime you have a passer like Jokic, you could tell the Nuggets are just like, all right, we're just going to run cutters and run off of him and try and get to the rim, and he'll find them. And the Sacramento Kings are notoriously poor at defending cuts, especially backdoor cuts. Like, backdoor baseline cuts are there so many times against the Kings defense. I don't know if it's guys like Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan or whoever's guarding the corner. They fall asleep, or they're paying too much attention to the ball handler, trying to see when they should help off. I don't know what it is, but the Kings just get crucified by backdoor cuts all the time. And that's something that maybe they'll continue to work on and focus on as the season goes on. And like there, you give up 130 points, and then you gave up 133 in Milwaukee, and you gave up 126 in Chicago. You're like, on paper, people are probably looking at that without the context of watching these games and going, man, the Sacramento Kings defense is horrid. They have no chance of winning basketball games. But the Chicago game was different. The second half of that Chicago game was so bad. But the Milwaukee game that they won, and this game tonight, it never felt that way. The Kings never fell out of the game. It was just simply put, the offense couldn't keep up. And I spent so much of the podcast after the Milwaukee Bucks win talking about it. Is that the blueprint for how the Kings realistically win basketball games? Their offense just has to be so good, and they have to emphasize that offense and score the basketball enough to where giving up a lot of points on the defensive end doesn't kill them as bad as it should. Once again, like, I wouldn't say the Kings offense was great in this game whatsoever. They put up 124 points. The Denver Nuggets defensively, they had a lot of mistakes too, but Sacramento's offense did enough to stay in it. But the offense couldn't keep up enough with the defense and the points that the Kings were allowing, especially at the rim, to give them a chance to actually win this basketball game. The Kings went 9 of 28 from three-point range. That's 32% from three-point range. And like, they were generating so many really good looks, like wide open looks. The passing, I thought, was not as sharp as it was in Milwaukee, but it was still good, right? Like, I would say like second or third best that we've seen so far this season. The Kings were generating really good looks on the perimeter. They just weren't falling in this game. And that's the thing, right? Like, it's clearly a game plan for every team in the league against Sacramento. And we've talked about this before. Dare the Kings to beat you from three-point range. Like, they have lethal three-point shooters. Zach LaVine, lethal three-point shooter. Keon Ellis has been, once again, fantastic from three-point range, and he was great in this game. Keon Ellis, 5 of 8 from three-point range. Russell Westbrook's been really good with that corner three. But other than that, like, DeMar DeRozan not going to kill you from three-point range. You take that gamble. Domantas Sabonis not going to kill you from three-point range. You take that gamble. Dennis Schroeder shot the ball really well from three-point range in Milwaukee, but that's pretty much been the only time this season he's done that. He went 0 of 5 from 3 tonight, so you take that gamble. Even Nick Clifford, 0 of 2 from three-point range in this game. Like, he's a rookie. He's got to show you that he can beat you from three before you really are playing tight and not helping off of him. So teams, like, the game plan against the Sacramento Kings is pretty straightforward. Allow them to shoot threes and beat you from three-point range. And if they start hitting threes and shots are falling from more than just the top three-point shooting guys, then you maybe respect that three-point shot a little bit more than teams do. But you can tell teams are clearly packing the paint and daring the Kings to come inside. Then crash the offensive glass. We know this. Like, the Kings have been very, very difficult or struggled a lot on or preventing teams on the offensive glass. The Nuggets, to be fair, only had 8 offensive rebounds in this game. It felt like a lot more. The second half, the Kings did a better job of securing defensive rebounds than they did in the first half. And the Kings actually won the rebound battle 47-40 in this game. So the rebounds definitely have been getting better. But still, when you look at second chance points, the Nuggets had 17 second chance points. They had 9 second chance opportunities, converted 7 of them. So, like, that's the good teams will kill you if you're given them second chance opportunities. That's what the Nuggets did in this game. So don't let the Kings shoot threes, crash the offensive glass, and then backdoor cuts. Like, just cut to the rim. You will get open. The Kings will fall asleep at some point. Those cutting lanes to the rim are going to be there. That is the game plan for how to beat the Sacramento Kings on a nightly basis. Every team knows it. Every team does it until the Sacramento Kings can find a way, especially like the three-point shooting one is the biggest one to me. Crashing the offensive glass, it's a big deal, and giving up too many second chance scoring opportunities, it's annoying, it's frustrating, right? We've dealt with that a lot here in Sacramento, and even the backdoor cuts, it's annoying, it's frustrating, but we expect the Kings defensively to struggle. The success of this team realistically has to come from scoring the basketball, and if the Kings can't find a way as a team to get more consistent and more dangerous from three-point range as a shooting team, they're going to struggle to win basketball games, as we saw in this game tonight. I will say on the defensive end, though, I think the Kings' three-point defense actually has gotten better. I think the Kings' three-point closeouts this season are a lot better. And it's showing statistically. The Nuggets 12 of 38, 31% from three-point range. We saw the Kings go to a zone again tonight. A lot of that has to do with trying to deal with Jokic as best as they can. And Jokic and the Nuggets did a masterful job of breaking down the zone a time or two. But the Kings didn't get killed from the Nuggets three-point shooters. And the Kings are coming into the game, or came into this game rather, 12th in the NBA in opponent three-point percentage at 34.8%. So they're holding their opponents to top half of the league in three-point shooting. And again, they held the Nuggets to 3% lower than their average tonight. So the three-point defense has actually been better for the Kings than expected. I want to talk about Russell Westbrook really quick. You could tell Russ had a little bit of a chip on. I mean, Russ always plays with a chip on his shoulder, but there was an extra bit of chip on his shoulder of the Nuggets were the most recent team that Russ played for. And Russ attacked him like he wanted to send a little bit of a message. 26 points, 10 of 17 from the field, 3 of 6 from three-point range, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. Did turn the ball over 6 times. I thought Russ clearly was amped up, clearly was trying to bring that energy. He started again, which is the right choice in the place of Keegan Murray still being out with his injury. Russ was clearly trying to make things happen and many, many times did make things happen. But there are also moments where it's like, oh, Russ just trying to thread the needle a little too much with these dangerous passes or just trying to force the issue a little bit, drawing offensive fouls or whatever it may be. You could tell it's the blessing and the curse of Russell Westbrook in the way that he plays. But I'll say, like, with absolute certainty, to this point, 7 games into the season, Russell Westbrook has been a smashing success for the Kings. He's been a total success. He's doing exactly what you need Russell Westbrook to do. His energy has been even more essential for this team, not just with Keegan Murray's absence, but with Malik Monk being out. He's been out for personal reasons after the last couple of games. And I do have maybe potentially a bit of an update on that coming later in the show. But Russ has been really good. And the way he's playing, like, I was always kind of confused about how is there not a team, a contending team out there, a team like Denver was last year, that doesn't think that Russ would help them. Like, I know Russ is at the end of his career and his career is sunsetting, 18th season in the league, right? But Russ still has a lot to give, clearly, is what he's showing. His numbers are not just empty calories. He drastically is impacting the good for Sacramento when they show it. I know money was tight this summer for every team because of the aprons, but like, the Kings got him on a vet minimum. You mean to tell me there aren't at least a few other teams that are trying to win basketball games, that are trying to compete for playoff spots or even make a deep playoff run, that couldn't use Russell Westbrook on their roster? They're lost, I guess. I'm very happy with how Russ is playing here in Sacramento. Still coming up on the podcast, though, we got to talk about Zach LaVine's struggles in this game, as well as just kind of the little more injuries that the Kings are dealing with. Jonas Valanciunas, we got to see him for the first time since the Kings traded him in a deal that still doesn't make sense to me. Plus, speaking of trades, there's conversation going around Sacramento about a potential Ja Morant trade. We'll talk about that. I'll share my brief thoughts on that coming up later in the show. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win, not just on game day, every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, then beating it again. Channel the drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood Strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. And Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Game Time. Basketball season is officially here. Thank goodness, and it's beautiful. And nothing beats being in the arena for these opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. It shouldn't be, but it is. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast easy, and stress-free. You can use Game Time to grab seats for this Kings and Warriors game coming up on Wednesday or any of this upcoming 5-game homestand. It can't be any simpler. You'll get great seats in minutes. And I love the fact that on Game Time, what you see is what you pay for. Like when you click on the seat or click on the event, it starts showing you the prices right then and there. Like that's it. Those are the prices. No hidden fees at checkout that add $20, $30, $40 to that final payment. Plus, you can see exactly what your view looks like from your seat. If you've never been to the Golden One Center before, it's the most accurate seat views that you are going to find. You can even find NBA tickets for under $25 on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. First time I can say all season long that Zach LaVine had a bad game. Not a good game for Zach LaVine. 15 points, 4 of 11 shooting from the field, 1 of 5 from three-point range, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers in this game. LaVine is dealing or was dealing with some lower back soreness. Not trying to make an excuse for the guy, but I don't think it's a coincidence that we get wind that he's dealing with his first little wear and tear from the NBA season, and he has his worst game after that. LaVine has been so unbelievably good. And in the first 6 games of the season, he scored 30 or more points 5 times. Like LaVine has been so great and so efficient offensively. Even without the back soreness, he was bound to struggle a little bit. And typically, like a scorer like Zach LaVine, if he's not scoring the basketball, like it feels like you're not getting anything out of him. And like 15 points for some players, we'll take 15 points, but 15 points for Zach LaVine, you're like, that's it. I do feel, and maybe I'm just trying too hard to show the guy love because he's had 1 bad game out of 7. I do feel like Zach was still impactful outside of scoring the basketball. Like he missed some good looks that could have been game-changing for the Kings. Could have been the shot needed to finally get the Kings within arm's length. They get closer than 6 points to really start to put some pressure on the Denver Nuggets. And just every time it felt like that shot was not falling for Zach tonight. But he still had 5 rebounds, so he crashed the glass. 4 assists, getting his teammates involved. I still felt his on-ball defense was solid. Now, his off-ball defense wasn't. He got killed on cuts time and time and time again. And Zach was one of those guys that I was looking at like, yeah, I think he's ready to get on a plane and get back home. I know these guys travel in style. Not that getting on a plane helps with your lower back or anything like that, but get home, get a day off, worry about the Golden State Warriors on Wednesday. Again, I'm not saying Zach LaVine mailed it in by any means, but he just had a bad night. And based off of how well that he's been playing, it's not worth like freaking out over. Now, if he starts stringing bad nights together, if a bad night becomes 2 bad nights or 3 bad nights, like the Kings can't afford that. They just can't. Like they just can't. We saw like in a game like this where they kept it close. And I know Malik Monk didn't play in this game either. And having Malik Monk in this game maybe makes it easier for Zach LaVine to have a tough night. DeMar DeRozan was fine. He had 18 points, I believe. 18 points, but he did it on 8 of 18 shooting from the field. 19 points, 8 of 18 shooting from the field. It's not like DeMar was that efficient either offensively. And both of those guys played really well in Milwaukee. So the Kings are always going to struggle to win basketball games when their offense isn't as good as it could be and those 2 guys are struggling. But if the Kings have struggles from both those guys, and especially Zach LaVine against the Warriors on Wednesday or against OKC the game after that, that's where we're starting to get into dangerous territory. But we're not there yet. Alarms are not going off because the Kings are dealing with injuries already, right? Domantas Sabonis, we already knew about the hamstring injury. And in this game, like Domas was just getting beaten up. Got hit in the face, got hit in the ribs. His ribs were bothering him, hurt his shoulder in the early parts of this game. It never really came out at any point. You could tell he was like, nope, I'm not coming out. I can still play. Keep me in there. But Domas constantly getting beat up. Dennis Schroeder came into this game with a hip injury, or he was dealing with like a little bit of a hip injury, ended up being cleared to play. So I think he's fine, but he's showing a little signs of wear and tear. By the way, the pull-up mid-range jumper that Dennis is starting to show off when he gets that screen from Domas or Drew Eubanks or whoever, and just gets a little bit of space and gets downhill, especially with defenses dropping into the paint to cut him off at the rim. That mid-range jumper, that was a shot that we saw De'Aaron Fox take a lot, and it worked in the Kings offense. Dennis Schroeder is showing that off. I like that shot a lot for him. But Schroeder's been dealing with a bit of a hip injury. It's funny, you hear these soreness injuries and hip injuries, and you remember the Kings have the third oldest roster in the NBA. So I guess these kind of wear and tear injuries are going to happen more when the roster is that old. And then Malik Monk missed the last 2 games with for personal reasons. We can speculate as to why. No really need to do that. We'll let him share if he wants to share when he comes back. And it sounds like he will be back for the Kings against the Warriors on Wednesday. At least that's the inkling that I've got. Those are the rumors and whispers that I've heard. So that would be nice because the Kings are going to need Malik Monk for this homestand. The Kings are going to need Malik Monk against the Warriors in that game. First glance at Jonas Valanciunas in a Denver Nuggets uniform. The Kings, of course, traded Jonas Valanciunas to the Nuggets this offseason. Jonas didn't have a phenomenal game, but he did his job coming off the bench, backing up Nikola Jokic, 8 points, 4 of 5 shooting from the field in 12 minutes. There was a moment in this game after Jonas scored one of his baskets that Katie Christensen, who I need to have back on the show, by the way. It's been too long since Katie's been on. But Katie Christensen said, man, that's a starting center in this league, but in a backup role. And I like laughed to myself because the Sacramento Kings traded that starting center in a backup role for Dario Saric, who once again was a DNP. Didn't get into the game. Not really playable. Wasn't playable with the Nuggets. Not really playable with the Sacramento Kings. All to save like $5 million. Now, to be fair, that $5 million matters when going out and getting someone like Russell Westbrook. So I guess I get it. And it's still kind of sort of incomplete because I do believe the Kings will try and use Saric and that $5 million for some sort of trade, something or another at the trade deadline, or at least I believe they're going to try to. We'll see if they're able to do that. So still a bit incomplete there, but the Kings are struggling with their backup center position after trading away Jonas Valanciunas. Drew Eubanks has had some better moments in these recent games. He and Russell Westbrook are showing off a nice little 2-man game together. But, I mean, you basically gave Valanciunas away to Denver. And now you're like, oh, we could really use one of them. And now apparently the Kings have their eye on, according to reports, Precious Achiuwa. All right. Like, you have 3 centers on this roster right now. One of them being Domantas Sabonis, of course. And you have, 4 centers, excuse me, because you have Eubanks, you have Dylan Cardwell, you have Maxime Reynaud, and even Isaac Jones is sitting there on the end of the bench now, not getting any playing time. All right, well, maybe Precious Achiuwa could do something. I don't know. But yeah, that Jonas Valanciunas trade stinks. It's not a huge deal. It's not worth like freaking out over, but I still don't get it. This episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by Rugiet. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everybody sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit Rugiet, spelled RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET, Rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know that we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. Let me know if you want me to talk about this more on a future episode of Locked On Kings, but I thought I'd bring it up a little bit here before we wrap up tonight's podcast. I've seen the conversations around Sacramento Sports Talk Radio. My guy Alan Stiles from Sacktown Sports 1140. There was a conversation from the insiders, James Ham, Kyle Madsen on ESPN 1320, all talking about, hey, things aren't going too well for John Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies right now. There's some drama. People are unhappy. We already saw the Grizzlies trade away Desmond Bane and get a haul of draft picks for Desmond Bane. Maybe the Grizzlies should be looking at just blowing it up And John Morant could become available. Is that a point guard that the Sacramento Kings could go out and get? He's young. He could be that star for the Kings. I'm good. Like to me, months after, because we're not a year yet, it feels like it's been a year, but months after you trade De'Aaron Fox and you get limited, I'll say, draft compensation back, right? Compared to what the Grizzlies got for Desmond Bane. And I believe De'Aaron Fox is a better player than Desmond Bane. You got the draft compensation you got back for De'Aaron wasn't great. It wasn't, I mean, you sent De'Aaron to San Antonio and didn't get anything of value draft pick wise really from San Antonio. So you trade Fox away. You trade away your star, your franchise player. You get very little draft compensation in return. And months later, you want to turn around and use a bunch of draft compensation and now go out and get John Morant. And it's also funny because we know that John Morant and De'Aaron Fox were compared to each other all the time early in their career. So just add another element of that silly storyline to this whole conversation. But like, I think it just doesn't make sense. And at the same time, it would be kind of peak Kings to do that. Me personally, like, these are the type of deals that I think Scott Perry needs to avoid like the plague. Just avoid like the plague. And we talked about this coming into this year. Really, the only thing I feel that the Kings could do that's horrible this season is go for an all-in crazy swing like that. That just doesn't make sense. It's kind of the same way I felt about a potential like Trae Young deal. There was part of me, like the chaos part of my brain's like, yeah, go get Trae Young. Yeah, go get John Morant. Let's have fun. Burn it to the ground. Woohoo. But the actual like smart part of the brain, the one that doesn't want the Kings to be crazy bad for another 10 years is saying this is not going to work. It's not what you should be doing right now. Like, this time is to ride out contracts while establishing a culture, trying to be as competitive as possible as you can right now, and setting yourselves up to where in a year and a half or 2 years, you can really, really start the process of building some sustainable success here in Sacramento. That's what Scott Perry should be looking for. I don't think John Morant checks those boxes at all. Now, if we're talking about Jaren Jackson Jr., now I'm listening. I like in a heartbeat. You send 4 first-round picks to Memphis plus matching salary to bring Jaren Jackson Jr. to Sacramento. Done. Say less. Where do I sign? I would do it in a heartbeat. We're talking about an all-NBA reigning or a former defensive player of the year, all-NBA defensive caliber player, stretches the floor, protects the rim. Like, you could put him next to Domantas Sabonis and it would make perfect sense. Hell yeah. 100%. I would go out and get Jaren Jackson Jr. and I would mortgage my future to be able to go out and get him. He's 26 years old. He's entering his prime. Absolutely. I would do that. I just don't think the Memphis Grizzlies are ever going to do that. So that's the conversation that I'm interested in. That's the conversation with Memphis that I'd be privy to and I'd be aggressive with if I were Scott Perry. I don't think those conversations are really going to happen, or if they do, they're going to be very short and to the point. It's not happening. Next, or click. That's how I think those conversations would go. But that, hey, if you're asking me, like, what from Memphis that I'd be keeping my eye on, it's Jaren Jackson Jr. It's not John Morant at this point. All right. Well, the Kings made it through the road trip. They went 1-3. They were able to get that Milwaukee Bucks win. Thank God. Just easier to stomach. Not that 2-5 to start the season is anything to get excited about, but you're coming home. A very difficult homestand, right? You got the Warriors on Wednesday. You got the Thunder. You got the T-Wolves. You got the Nuggets again, who the Nuggets were beatable in this game. Maybe being on your home floor, getting Malik Monk back, getting a little bit healthier. Maybe you can go out and get this game or get that game in Sacramento. Then wrapping up with the Atlanta Hawks, who will not have Trae Young in that game. I think 2 wins is the bare minimum expectation, but 2 wins might also be a success in some people's eyes for the Kings. Although I know there's some people listening to going, Matt, we want the Kings to lose every game. Be competitive like you did in tonight's game and lose. Like, that's the best case scenario for the Kings. I'm not talking to you. If you feel that way, great. I'm not talking to you. Like, if the Kings could somehow find a way to go 3-2 during this homestand, like that would be a smashing success in my mind. But 2 wins, I'd take that. The way Russ has been playing, the defense being somewhat like engaged, or at least creating steals, creating some havoc. The offense, like the ball movement, and just everybody getting more on the same page. I'm hopeful that can maybe spark some crowd energy inside that Golden One Center to help spur the Kings on to a win or two. Plus, their if I'm not mistaken, NBA Cup play begins. I think the Thunder game is their first Cup game, if I'm not mistaken. So lots to look forward to on this 5-game homestand. If you're going to any of these games inside the Golden One Center, yours truly will be there. Top of section 105. That's the media section. Come by and say hi. Would love to chat with you. Would love to see you. Plan is before Wednesday's Kings-Warriors game tomorrow, I'm planning on having a Locked On Kings podcast for you. Still trying to figure out what that podcast is going to be about. Maybe more on John Morant, more on Precious Achiuwa, more on whatever. We'll figure it out. But keep an eye out for that. And if you want to share your thoughts on this Kings game tonight, feel free to do that as well. At Matt George Sack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.